After a healthy run of comedy and genre work, Karen Gillan felt it was time for a dramatic change. Shortly before Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3's Whirlwind press tour, Gillan returned to Australia where she shot Thor, Love and Thunder a couple years earlier and joined the cast of Adam Cooper's Sleeping Dogs, led by Russell Crowe. The twisty psychological crime drama follows Crowe's retired homicide detective Roy Freeman, as his recovery from an experimental Alzheimer's procedure prompts him to reapproach a murder case from a decade earlier. Gillan plays the enigmatic Laura Baines, the right-hand researcher to Martin Chokus' Dr. Joseph Weider and his memory reconsolidation therapy thesis. When Professor Weider Chokus winds up dead, Freeman Crowe takes a newfound interest in Baines Gillan when he revisits the case a decade later. Sleeping Dogs plays with the tropes of the femme fatale through Baines, although Gillan hesitates to use that description for her. My interpretation of the character might not line up with everyone else's interpretation, but I like this idea that she was very performative, Gillan tells The Hollywood Reporter. So I thought it would be fun for me to watch some YouTube videos of people that she might want to emulate and then do a little bit of an affectation. Gillan is also looking back at the conclusion of James Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy, and even she was surprised by the final message that Chris Pratt's Peter Quill/Star-Lord would return to the MCU someday. With the Quill-led Guardians films coming to a fitting end, his post-Vol 3 future, along with his fellow Guardians, was a big question mark until that parting post-credit statement. It was pretty surprising, but it was cool as well. I was like, okay, what's the plan here? Gillan says. With Gunn moving over to co-run DC Studios with producer Peter Safran, Gillan has openly stated that she'd love to play Poison Ivy for her former director, but after the decade's worth of work he already provided her, she's not going to press him on the subject. I like to leave things up to the universe a little bit and see what happens, but I would absolutely love to work with James again. He's the best, Gillan shares. Below, during a recent conversation with THR, Gillan also discusses her highly popular vlog about her final Guardians experience, as well as the candid, in-character photo she posted of Zoom couples therapy. So where did Sleeping Dogs fall on your timeline? Oh my God, since the pandemic, I have no sense of time. I don't know if you're experiencing that as well, but I thought I got married 1 year ago, and I just realized it's been 2. Laughs. Anyway, I shot Sleeping Dogs last February, and it would have been after Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, I think. What was your state of mind at the time? What were you looking for with regard to work? I don't know if I really was looking for anything in particular, but I do want to dabble in the dramatic space a little bit more just because I've gotten to do a fair bit of comedy and genre stuff. So I wanted to exercise that dramatic muscle a little bit, but I was pretty open-minded. This just came along, and I always think a sure sign that I should do something is when I'm reading it, and I start reading the lines out loud just because it's fun. So it's for no one's benefit but my own, and that's when I'm like, well, if I'm having fun doing this right now, I should probably go and do this for a job. My interpretation of the character might not line up with everyone else's interpretation, but I like this idea that she was very performative. Maybe she studied people that she deemed to be intellectual and were really into classical music and sophisticated things that she could talk about at dinner parties. So I thought it would be fun for me to watch some YouTube videos of people that she might want to emulate and then do a little bit of an affectation. It's not an impression, but it's more like this feeling that she doesn't seem totally genuine. There's something going on there that feels a little performative. You briefly shared the forest set with Tommy Flanagan in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, but Sleeping Dogs gave you 1 or 2 rather interesting scenes together. As fellow Scots, have you crossed paths a lot over the years? I think it was just on Guardians, actually, but funnily enough, he's from the same area in Easterhouse, Scotland as my mother. So I feel like I've just known him forever. But no, we haven't actually worked on that many things together. I'm trying to imagine that because I rely heavily on my memory, I really wouldn't be able to go into it without knowing my lines. I know them inside out so that I can then be really free emotionally and try a bunch of things that work or fail, and it'd be hard to concentrate on doing all that when you're limited by not knowing what word is next in your dialogue. So I would struggle without my memory. However, I'm sure there's some people that have the technique of turning up and not knowing their lines and somehow getting through it, and sometimes that turns out brilliantly. So there isn't one rule for everyone in this. It's all about just trying to be as truthful and as in the moment as possible, and that can be with memory or without. So I really like the behind-the-scenes vlog that you did for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, But something caught my attention after you'd gone through 4 hours of makeup and prosthetics to become Nebula. You went back to your trailer in full makeup, and then someone arrived to give you a COVID test. Wouldn't it make sense to give you a COVID test before undergoing 4 hours of makeup? Yes, it would. The reason for that is because I had to start makeup so early that they didn't have any staff that could come in at that hour to do a COVID test. They came in at the beginning of everybody's normal day, but my normal day started at 3 a.m. So we basically couldn't do it until they came into work. You don't have to specify, but were there instances where people tested positive after going through hours and hours of makeup? Yeah. That photo of you attending Zoom couples therapy in your Nebula makeup is one of the most remarkably honest images I've ever seen. Between that and the vlog, did you intentionally want to show people the less glamorous side of an actor's life? I just thought it was the funniest thing. My husband and I both thought it was the funniest, most ridiculous thing. So there was no strategy of wanting to show a real side. It was more that we had to because it was so funny. I also think it's good to try to normalize therapy in any way that we can. There is still a little bit of a stigma attached to it, and if more people just talked about it in a normal fashion, maybe we can get to the point where people are more willing to go and seek help. If you find out, can you let me know? Laughs. Because I don't know. I'm sure it's tricky to wrangle everyone's schedules, but I haven't heard anything about it other than the fact that we will be doing it at some point. So we're all so enthusiastic about it. We all love working on those films, and it's just a matter of when. Sleeping Dogs releases only in theaters on March 22nd.